Hi, gang. This is Gina Phillips from Darkness to Light Ministries. Welcome to part one of a two-part series where we're going to talk about Delta military programming, the feminine side of that, which is Minnie Mouse programming, and then we're going to talk about polka dots and how polka dots are a symbol for weapons of warfare. We're going to go deeper than the last video. If you've not gone to my website and seen the first video that I did called Mind Control Overview, you'll want to take a look at that. We're going to go deeper in these videos and begin to get into some of the early programming. So have a look at that overview if you are new to what government-sponsored mind control is. If you've already seen it, then let's get ready and dig in. I want to talk about the military programming that is popping up all over the world right now. It's called the Delta military programming. There's a masculine side and a feminine side, and I'm seeing the feminine side, which is the strategic side of military programming going out in the comms. At the moment, I want to look at polka dots. So polka dots is underneath the umbrella of Delta military programming. Polka dots, the different colors and variations represent a variety of different weapons. And these comms are going out all over, so I want us to take a look at them. We'll look first at the comms and the activations and how that's being played out. And in the second part of this video, I'm going to talk to you about Minnie Mouse Delta military programming and how that's put in. But right now, let's look here at these Louis Vuitton buildings with polka dots on them. So we have a picture here of the building, the Louis Vuitton building in New York City, covered with polka dots. And then you see this Japanese lady named, she's an artist, supposedly the most famous female artist in the world, named Yayoi Kusama. I hope I'm saying that correctly. There she is with her famous polka dot arts on the New York Louis Vuitton building. You see here also on the building in Paris. See that big giant balloon figure up here in the right? That's a blow up of her on the Louis Vuitton building in Paris. Down here at the bottom right, we see polka dots covering Harrods, which is a very popular department store in London. And then we also see her polka dots in Tokyo. They're all yellow. That's a significant comm too. They're still polka dots, which are a weapon. They're in Tokyo. And I'm not sure what building that is in Tokyo. I'd have to look at my notes. But these are big worldwide comms to activate and pull up, actually not activate, polka dot programming in ritual abuse mind control survivors. Okay, so I took a minute to actually look up the yellow polka dots in Tokyo to see what they were, because I didn't want to leave you hanging on that. But it says that in Tokyo, the Louis Vuitton store remade their window displays in the style of Kusama's pumpkin art. So she's also known for pumpkins with polka dots, and the yellow polka dots are her pumpkin polka dots covering the walls. You'll later see why I wanted to make sure that I got that in there, that it's her pumpkin art, because we're going to see how the pumpkins turn into spiders or octopuses, which is also a kind of program. So let's take a look at who this artist is that's being honored here. It always amazes me how people who are not programmed follow Hollywood or some of these fashion designers when you really look at their lives. Why on earth? I get it why programmed people do, because it's in them, but people who are not programmed, I do not understand why they follow the fashions and the stars when you look at their lives. So let's just take a little look at who this lady is. I believe her name is pronounced Yayoi Kusama. Here on Wikipedia, it talks about how she's a Japanese contemporary artist who works primarily in sculpture, painting, video art, fashion, poetry, fiction, etc. Um, it says that her art is infused with autobiographical, psychological, and sexual content. She's been acknowledged as one of the most important living artists to come out of Japan, and that she is the world's top selling female artist and the world's most successful living artist. I'm going down to the highlights. Embracing the rise of the hippie counterculture in the late 1960s, she came to public attention when she organized a series of happenings in which naked participants were painted with brightly colored polka dots. Kusama has been open about her mental health and has resided since the 1970s in a mental health facility, which she leaves daily to walk to her nearby studio to work. She says that art has become her way to express her mental problems. Quote, I fight pain, anxiety, and fear every day, and the only method that I've found that relieves my illness is to keep creating art, she told an interviewer in 2012. I followed the thread of art and somehow discovered a path that would allow me to live. I want to, in her biography down here, to make note now. It'll come into play later of importance. It'll come into play as being important later, that she was born into a family of merchants who owned a plant nursery and a seed farm. Polka dots are going to represent seeds. You're going to learn later when I do a talk about how programming is put in. And then it says Kusama began drawing pictures of pumpkins in elementary school and created artwork she saw from hallucinations, works of which would later define her career. So she's mentally ill, has chosen to live in a mental institution. She leaves that every day and does her work. You're going to see this is about polka dots and hallucination and breaks with reality, and yet somehow she's the best female artist to ever come out of Japan and the top selling one in the whole world. I don't get it. And then just like looking at her. So she's being celebrated right now. She's obviously, in my opinion, programmed herself. And she's sending out comms that are related to her polka dots because they're painting up these world buildings everywhere with her. And let's just look at her a little bit more. So a little bit more info about her. It says that the artist says that her mother would often send her as a young girl to spy on her father's extramarital affairs, which instilled within her a lifelong contempt for sexuality, particularly the male's lower body and the phallus. Quote, I don't like sex. I had an obsession with sex when I was a child. My father had lovers, and I experienced seeing him. My mother sent me to spy on him. I didn't want to have sex with anyone for years. The sexual obsession and fear of sex sit side by side in me. Her traumatic childhood including her fantastic visions, can be said to be the origin of her artistic style. So, this trauma and such is the basis of this art style. When Kusama was 10 years old, she began to experience vivid hallucinations, which she has described as flashes of light, auras, or dense fields of dots. These hallucinations included flowers. There's flower programming. Flowers that spoke to Kusama, and patterns in fabric that she stared at coming to life, multiplying, engulfing, or expunging her. A process which she's carried into her artistic career and which she calls self-obliteration. I call it a break with reality. I call it the shattering of the ego. But let me continue. Kusama's art became her escape from her family and her own mind, and when she began to have hallucinations. When Kusama was 13, she was sent to work in a military factory where she was tasked with sewing and fabricating parachutes for the Japanese army. Remember this later when I talk about how military programming is put in and how polka dots is a component of that military programming. Going down to the bottom highlighted part. The vast fields of polka dots, Miss Kusama calls them infinity nets, were taken directly from her hallucinations, from her break with reality. Infinity nets were entirely covered in a sequence of nets and dots that alluded to hallucinatory visions. On her 1954 painting entitled Flower, this is what Miss Kusama said. One day I was looking at the red flower patterns of the tablecloth on a table, and when I looked up, I saw the same pattern covering the ceiling, the windows and the walls, and finally all over the room, my body, and the universe. I felt as if I had begun to self-obliterate, to revolve in the infinity of endless time and the absoluteness of space and be reduced to the nothingness. As I released it, it was actually happening and not just in my imagination. So as she released, that's her just giving up to the psychosis, not fighting reality anymore. I was frightened. I knew I had to run away, lest I should be deprived of my life by the spell of the red flowers. I ran desperately up the stairs. The steps below me began to fall apart, and I fell down the stairs, straining my ankle. Kind of interesting, huh? So let's take a look at Polka Dot Man from the DC Comics. It's still polka dot military weapon programming, but it's on a male side. You know, this other artist lady, she's going to appeal more to the fashion industry, but we see polka dots in males programming as well. And so let's look at him. He explains what the polka dots are. So you have Polka Dot Man Abner Krill. He's a supervillain appearing in the comic books published by DC Comics. The character made his live action debut in the DC Extended Universe film and the Suicide Squad film in 2021. Just note he's an old character, and by bringing him back into the Suicide Squad movie, it's keeping that polka dot programming alive over the generations. It's been around forever, and that's just keeping it fresh and in the public, that polka dot programming. A local crook named Abner Krill, who decided for reasons unknown to launch a crime wave based on spots and dots in Gotham City, where he inevitably came into conflict with Batman and Robin. So this is about a conflict between Batman and Robin and the Polka Dot Man. I'm just going to throw this in there. I'm not sure where it's going just yet, but no, I'll hopefully do a decode with Rihanna, who will be doing the Super Bowl halftime show. Her middle name is Robin, and she's currently in a legal battle with DC Comics because they don't want her to use her middle name Robin, Robyn, for commercial goods that she's going to be selling. And so they're in this battle as well. We'll see what comes of that. But as Mr. Polka Dot, he wore a costume covered in spots. Once removed from the costume, the spots would be used for a variety of purposes, like creating deadly weapons and a bizarre escape vehicle. Mr. Polka Dot Man succeeded in capturing Robin, but Batman defeated him. Years later, Krill, who's now called Polka Dot Man, was driven to crime once more when he found himself unemployed, penniless, and desperate to pay his bills. So notice that that's happening right now to a lot of people, and they're pulling up polka dot programming. That, much like Mr. Krill here, there's a lot of people that are programmed finding themselves unemployed, penniless, and desperate to pay their bills. No longer able to afford his original electronically gimmicked costume, he instead resorted to using a baseball bat in a poorly thought out attempt to rob a jewelry store, which resulted in him assaulting Officer Foley of the Gotham City Police Department, causing minor injury. So pay attention to the baseball bat weapons. Following his recovery, Krill became a committed alcoholic who spent more time drinking himself into a stupor in sleazy bars than troubling Batman. We're going to see the alcoholic component come up in a little bit. That comes under the Delta military programming parts. The Polka Dot Man appears in the prequel comic Injustice 2 following events of the first game. He is shown as a member of this universe's Suicide Squad. The mysterious villain appears and takes control of the squad. He kills the Polka Dot Man using the bomb implanted in his neck, considering him useless. Any and all of these themes may come up, but I wanted you to see polka dots are weapons in programming. It's defined here, and I'm sorry I read so much. I don't know these characters. I just know the programs and the stories and mythology about polka dots. I have to read it for my own self, but I wanted to show you a little more about what polka dots are. So here's a couple more polka dot comms that went out. We see that Raven Simone all of a sudden decides that she's going to have a polka dot haircut on the red carpet. You see this basketball court that was frozen with rare polka dots during the storms that we had posted up there in Utah. So the significance of this is that the polka dot comms are all coming out, within about 9 days of each other. I didn't just pull these off, from years and all over scattered around the place. They're comms that are saturating the media right now because it's activating within the mind control army polka dot military programming. And these are just pictures that people have sent me on Twitter to show me how the comms are going out. If you don't follow me on Twitter and you like seeing this kind of stuff, you may want to follow me because that's the first place I'm going to go when I start to see comms going out based on the people that I'm working with, the survivors that are across the nation. I have a lot of buddies that send me pictures of trending comms on Twitter for me to decode because I don't have time to watch TV. And the funny thing is I don't even know who the movies or the stars are. I have to actually look them up. But again, maybe check me out on Twitter if this is something you like, because you're gonna catch me there decoding before I do a video. But just a few more polka dot comms going out recently. Another polka dot com going out in the fashion industry at the same time, January 23rd. We have Kylie Jenner, and she was sporting this lion head dress, and I'm going to show you that she is signaling the invoking of the Egyptian goddess Sekhmet, or the Hindu goddess Parvati in her form of Durga. And then we see over here Doja Cat. I didn't know who she was. I had to look her up. But she was partnered there at this fashion show with Kylie Jenner. So you have the red and the black, which is a Delta color. Delta military programming. The assassination colors are red and black. You see them paired up in a com. Military programming is originally put in using the symbols of Mickey and Minnie Mouse, and you know that their colors also are black and white and red. And so I popped her up here. I'm going to get into a whole lot more detail about this programming in just a little bit, but I wanted to pop it up there to continue the polka dot theme. Minnie Mouse brings into programming the polka dots, which are used in the system as weapons, but she's when it's first introduced into the child. But I want you to notice that this Doja Cat lady, she has so many polka dots on her body that they actually become all red. They've all merged to be one color, but they're still polka dots. If you read the article about her, they're little individual crystals that they glued on her. So they do, and even her skirt, you see the little bubbles and the polka dots on there. This is another polka dot com. This is a military com. All of these communications were happening within a 9-day period. Saturating the media. Again, here's another picture of the fashion show. I don't know a lot about fashion. I don't remember where it was held, but it saturated the media. This picture in itself is a com. Remember, everything about a picture is a symbol. It tells people who are survivors how to alter, move around, or activate their programming. So in this picture, you've got black on one side, red on the other, white in the middle. The white that the designer's dressed in is going to represent daytime side of military programming, black and red, military assassin programming, daytime side. You're going to invoke the entity, the lion entity Sekhmet, who is also known as Parvati's Durga side. And then over here in the red, is just the color of the military programming, and the polka dots are a weapon. To show you a picture over here at the right of Sekhmet, if you notice, she's the Egyptian goddess of a lion, and this big old disc on her head is a polka dot. So that's not by choice. I'm not going to get into this vein because it's a whole nother vein, but if you notice that at the Grammys, that one of the movies that was up for nomination was the movie Elvis, and Elvis lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and Sekhmet is one of the goddesses over the city we see here of Memphis. There was a Memphis in Egypt. Memphis is the name of a city and a goddess, and over that city was Sekhmet, and Ta was also the other god over Memphis. Memphis was known as a city of graves and cemeteries in the occult. And notice that Elvis's daughter died prematurely recently, just happening to die when her father's biography, Elvis, is nominated for a Grammy. That is not by chance. All of those are codes. But I just want you to sit and see. Sekhmet's tied to Memphis. Elvis is tied to Memphis. If you sit and you look up the movie poster for Elvis, it'll also be red, black, and white, another military comm. Those are the colors of Delta Assassin programming, Delta military programming. All of this is by design. It's not by chance. It's a comm. I want to talk a little bit about the storyline of Sekhmet. Because remember, within the programming, the loosely the programming will follow the storylines of the gods, little g. And so I want you to see that here as Sekhmet, the lion goddess, is going out. So in Egyptian mythology, Sekhmet was a warrior goddess as well as a goddess of healing, and she's depicted by the lioness. She's a solar deity, sometimes called the daughter of Ra, and she's often associated with the goddesses of Hathor and Bastet. Sekhmet was the daughter of the sun god Ra, and was among the more important of the goddesses who acted as the vengeful manifestation of Ra's power, the Eye of Ra. Sekhmet was said to breathe fire. That's one of the elementals of fire. The red military programming is tied to the red element of fire, the red elemental entity of fire as well. And the hot winds of the desert were likened to her breath. She was also believed to cause plagues. Remember, polka dots are weapons. Weapons can be anything from plagues like COVID. Notice that this current version of COVID is called the Kraken. Release the Kraken. And we're going to later see that the polka dots of the Japanese lady, Kusama, that they turn into... I totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh, they turn into octopus, and the Kraken is an octopus. That's significant as well. In the myth, Sekhmet's bloodlust was not quenched at the end of a battle that led to her destroying almost all of humanity. To stop her, Ra poured out beer that was dyed with red ochre to make it resemble blood. Mistaking the beer for blood, Sekhmet, in her bloodlust, went to drink it, and that caused her to give up her rampage of slaughtering everything because she got drunk, and she returned peaceably to Ra. I'll talk later about parts inside that are follow this storyline, and we'll have the bloody military attacking raging parts of Sekhmet, and then the calming sides that are drunk with alcohol to stop the programming. I want to show you some more comms going out that are the black and red Delta military programming comms. Even though this is a shootout, I suspect that this was actually not a real shootout, but a comm, a communication. When I say comm, it's short for communication, sent out to the mind control army to get ready to be activated for shootouts. We've had, since this went out, a whole lot of shootings. Interesting that nobody was harmed in this one. That's why I kind of suspect it, instead of being a spontaneous shootout, that it was meant to saturate the news to begin to get people to see that they needed to line up their military polka dot programming. their red and black military programming. But you may remember the alleged gang shootout that happened in Compton in LA area. The surveillance cameras captured this shootout at a youth academy and a daycare in Compton. Um, and so I just captured a picture here of the shootout. But as the interview continues, this guy up here in the right hand corner, he's the owner of this child center, this youth academy and daycare. And he just happens to be dressed in the red and black colors of the military program. Now, of course, if you look down here at the bottom, the entire youth center, their colors are red and black. But the fact that this happens when all these other colors of the military, black and red, Delta military programming comes out, I doubt that it's by chance. Like they could have had this shootout as a calm happen at any other child care center or youth care center, but it happened to be the ones whose colors were red and black because they wanted that saturating the media. And again, that is my own personal opinion, knowing how programming works. So the owner's dressed in that color. When they show in the video, all of the kids are dressed in the red and black at that center as well. And then we see in that same interview with the Compton Center, they go inside, showing the children inside the center, and there they all sit in front of a polka dot tablecloth. If you remember the storyline of Miss Kusama, that she sat at the table staring at a polka dot tablecloth, and she basically crosses and has a psychotic break. Well, here's these youth at this black and red military comm shootout, and they're all sitting in front of a TV set, sitting in front of a table with polka dots, and you can see the polka dot tables more clearly on the right hand picture. It's kind of interesting too. Jacob Imrani or something, I can't read on this, but I did look up the name of the man that just happens to be on the computer screen, and he is a some kind of personal injury lawyer. Kind of interesting. Like, why would children be sitting there looking at the name of a personal injury lawyer? I don't know if he's like, it's letting the people who watch this know, if you want to get your money for these shootouts or whatever it is we're getting you to do, see this man, he's your payoff. And, I apologize if this man's clean and squeaky, but this kind of thing happens. So I can't validate that he's the guy, but what are your chances, right? Everybody does get paid for what they do. Kind of weird. Here's another shootout that happened around the same time. Again, all of these are happening as the polka dot calms out. You start to have all of these shootings. This is the Monterey Park shooting. It says just hours before the shooting, Chu said she was just 1 block away celebrating the opening of the Lunar New Year Festival with thousands of participants. And so here's a picture of that. Notice the red polka dots up there again. They could have given you any picture, but no, they show you the man in black along with the red polka dots. So the primary colors here, you've got the black and the red, the military colors again, military programming colors. This was at a dance studio. You see on the right hand side the pictures they posted. The man to the right in black who has the toboggan on, he was the shooter. And it just so happens that the man that tried to stop him was also in black and white. So you got your colors black, white, red, colors of the military program. I looked up the dance club. What does Lili mean? Lili means sex procured through the use of the internet. It means going online to look for like-minded people to have sex. So you had the shootout in that club that 10 people or 11 people were killed, 10 or so more were injured. And it's interesting that this shooting and the next one we're going to look at were Asian men. You had the Asian polka dot lady. All of them were old. She's an older lady. These were older Asians. We had our president, I believe it was, come on quickly after these shootings and begin to try to say, like, these things happen because of racism against Asian people. Again, they want to stir us up to hate each other. They want to make Asian people hate whites, and blacks hate whites, and whites hate them back. But that's going down a whole nother vein. Polka Dots shootings. So here's the third shootout that happened after all of these polka dot comms, weapon comms, military, Delta military programming comms. And it's another older Asian man. Notice again, he's wearing a black vest with red, the black and red and white again. His hat looks white. You got the man in black above him. And there he is laying on the ground. And another nod to the moon. It's at Half Moon Bay. And then it was at the moon or the lunar festival that the last shootout happened. Says suspect in the killing of 7 people in Half Moon Bay was identified as a farm worker. I find that really interesting. I want you to pay note to this because later when I'm talking about Minnie Mouse and her skirt, I want you to remember that 7 people were shot and killed at 2 mushroom farms. Okay, I'm not going to get into it right now, but you'll see the significance of this later on in the video when I teach you about how programming is put in. This man who was the shooter worked at a mushroom farm. And again, it's another Asian man, older Asian man. I think that that's significant. Now that you've seen the military comms that are going out throughout the media, I want to talk about how that programming is put in. This is going to be a place in the video where I may lose a lot of you, but just know that I'm putting the video out to a wide audience. I'm wanting people who are not programmed and are new to this whole concept to be able to see this is real, this is how this mind control army operates. But I'm also wanting to reach survivors to be able to identify these systems inside of themselves and begin to exert their will in these domains, know what entities they're tied to help facilitate their own healing. And then I got a bunch of folks out there that are my deprogrammers that I've been working with, and I've been trying to help them to see how programming is structured in and how to look for the clues of what program they're in based on the verbal explanations of their clients, what they see, notice, and hear. So if I lose you at this part of the video, I apologize. Maybe you just hold on to the first part and that's just where you're at. I really do rack my brain to try to figure out how to explain these complex structures and all that's involved so that everybody can understand. It's not so easy. So I do welcome your feedback. If you don't understand something, it helps me to try to figure out a better way to explain it. So here we go.